Hello, I'm Brian Canfield, and today we're going to unravel more of the mysteries of stained glass. And what better way to unravel those mysteries than by visiting a traditional art-based stained glass studio, which is Barra Stained Glass Studios. Today I'd like to bring you through the process of a traditional studio, and we're going to talk about the renderings, the full-size cartoons, the cutting of the glass, the painting of the glass and firing, and also the fabrication. Here in the front office of Barra Stained Glass, we're going to show you a few of the first steps in the process of a stained glass project, and that's the scaled rendering. It is typically a 1-inch to 1-foot ratio. I feel that doing it in watercolor is a real nice way to illustrate the look of glass, even though looking at a rendering such as this, you really can't conceptualize exactly what it's going to look like in glass, but I feel watercolor does the job. In here we have 3 panels. Some of the iconography of this particular one is the birth of Christ. And we do a lot of research when we do these different projects because different denominations have different symbols and different iconography. So we do a lot of research before we actually do this first process. And now let's move back and look at the full-size cartoon. So here, the next phase of the process, once we've done the rendering, we now draw the full-size cartoon. And what we have here is a full-size cartoon. It's relatively big, but you have to draw this full-size because basically this is like the blueprint. And this is what gives us an idea of the form. For example, here we have the form of Christ. We can draw the face. We draw the lead lines, we draw the hair, and we get an idea of what is going to be glass and what is going to be lead, and then also what needs to be painted. So the full-size cartoon takes a lot of work. Really gives you the basic premise and basis for the next up-and-coming process in this project. Then also, once we get this cartoon finished, the client can come in, see it in this full size, and really have a better understanding of what they're going to get. And at this point they can give us criticism or praise even, and we can make changes. And then after this we're going to make a couple copies of the full size, and then we'll be able to start cutting all these individual pieces of glass. So now that we have the full-size cartoon drawn, we have to make multiple copies of that full size. And that's a pretty daunting endeavor considering the size of some of the panels that we do. But nonetheless, we still do it by hand, and every single line will be traced. But when you trace that, you have to transfer it to another blank butcher paper. And so to do that, we use large pieces of graph paper, which allows us to do that transfer. And then once we have our copy made, then we start to number each, just like in the design process we talked about earlier. And also we identify the color of the glass. Now once we have all of that organized and mapped out as far as the number and the color, then we can cut each individual shape out that gives us the template for that particular shape of glass. And with that we use a lead scissors, which will accommodate for the heart, the width of that heart, and this will actually cut out the heart. And so we use lead scissors to cut out each template. Once we get the template such as this, that gives us the exact shape that we need to cut our piece of glass out. And when it comes to the color of glass, we typically try not to buy too much because we can pull from our existing stock, which greatly helps in our overhead. But organization is very key in this process in that we have these trays that identify each panel. And also within each tray you may have hundreds of pieces of glass. So keeping the number, keeping it all together relative to the panels is essential because otherwise you're going to spend hours and hours and hours trying to identify where this one little piece of glass goes in the thousands of possibilities. Next, we'll take this glass, put it on the easel, and now apply the paint. All right, now that we have the glass cut, we can now put it up on the easel, and this is where the magic happens. This is really what distinguishes a lot of traditional studios from, let's say, the normal studios. This process is where we take the glass, and of course we bring this, what I call my easel. It's just a big, huge piece of clear glass framed in wood. We bring it down horizontal, parallel to the ground. We put each piece of glass where it would be in the normal cartoon, and we will take this beeswax resin mix, this black solid wax here, and we heat it up, we'll liquefy it, and then we take an eye drop, and you can see in all of these little crevices, these dark areas, and we'll literally drip this hot liquid wax in between the glass. Now once that wax solidifies, it allows the glass that we cut to stay on the easel. Now we can hoist it up vertical, get natural lighting behind it, and start to apply the painted pigment, which what we use, again, is very traditional vitreous-based paint. It's a high-fire paint, and if you can see on the surface of the glass, we have these trace lines, which are the dominant lines. We would fire, and then we put it back up on the easel to then apply the shadow vitreous pigment, which this is unfired. Once I'm finished painting this, then we put it back into the kiln to fire it for the second time. Now this vitreous pigment literally is like ground up glass, and the color comes from the glass itself, and then the vitreous pigment gives the monochromatic and chiaro shading on the glass. Once it's fired though, it's one of the longest lasting painted mediums in the world. As long as that glass doesn't break, it's going to really outlast most oils and watercolors. I mean, think about some of those old cathedrals in Europe, 800, 1,000-year-old glass exactly like this that still exists today and didn't even lose their color. One other thing you can do to some of the glass, which this will take a couple more firings as we get up into the face, is we'll have to add some enamels, which is basically some colors that we can add. That's a lower temperature firing, and we'll add color to the beard, we'll add color to the hair. Sometimes you would add maybe blue or a different color for the eyes. And a lot of times this will take 3 or 4 different firings. It's a very tedious process, going from the kiln back to the easel, back to the kiln. Now once we get everything fired, then we bring it to the table and we start to fabricate it. We put the lead around it, we'll solder, and we'll finish by cementing it. That is a completed panel, and then it's ready to be installed. That is the workings and the process of a traditional stained glass studio. I hope that you enjoyed it. We'll see you again.